Hi everybody, it's Heather. Now please forgive me, I just finished washing my hair and my face and I just put a bunch of moisturizer on. So I probably look like a glowworm or something. I'm really shiny. So please forgive me as I had to make this video. I was reading through some of my email and came across an email from a lady named Spain. I'm not going to mention her name just because, I kind of made this before responding to her email. But I wanted to make this video public, and I will probably send this to her as a response because she gave me a really excellently detailed account of some of the stuff that she's gone through in her hair loss journey. And she's really frustrated, and I just want to read a couple of passages, not anything really personally telling. She said she cannot for the life of her cannot pinpoint the real reason behind her hair loss and would really, really like to know it. She says, I feel the doctors here are clueless and no one around me seems to have the same problem, so I feel like a freak. Now let me tell you that this is so common. This is so common. It's depressingly common. And so she's in good company. I went through this. A lot of people go through this. Usually men, actually. And I mean that. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. I think it's really important to take a step back when you find yourself in that kind of dead-end situation. Okay, let's say, here's the situation. You have been losing your hair for years and you don't know why. You've gone to an endocrinologist and they've done all this blood work and everything is fine. Your thyroid is fine and it's not even borderline, it's fine. You don't have testosterone problems. You don't have problems with your estrogen. Everything seems to be okay. You don't have an autoimmune disease. So what gives? Why is your hair falling out? And I have to ask you this question in response, and I really mean it. When men lose their hair, does it happen all at once or does it happen gradually? Usually happens kind of gradually, right? And when they lose their hair gradually like that, do we automatically assume that they have some sort of disease that's causing it? That there's some sort of problem? Or do we just assume that they're losing their hair because of hereditary hair loss? Well, guess what? Just as many women experience hereditary hair loss as men. Just as many. Now, most women will experience it a little later on. They usually, because estrogen sort of protects the hair a little bit. And so, women do have a little bit more hair on the top of their head, but it usually, everybody catches up with one another in terms of hair loss, around the time women start to go through menopause. So it's just as many. And just because you may be experiencing it a little bit younger, than perimenopausal or menopausal women, it doesn't mean that it's not still hereditary, which means that there's really not much you can do. It's not a hormone problem. It's not autoimmune. There are no pills to take. And you can use Minoxidil. You can use Minoxidil on it. But I mean, other than that, it's not really a situation you can do much about. And yes, there are lots of snake oil varieties out there where people be like, put this on your head, this will work, and I don't want to be the crusher of dreams, but none of that stuff has really been proven to work, except for Minoxidil. And have you ever wondered why Minoxidil works? Well, here's in a nutshell why. Your hair goes through 3 stages in its growth cycle: anagen, catagen, and telogen. They also call the telogen phase telogen effluvium. which is something that anyone who's had weight loss surgery would also be familiar with, because you may have heard it even called that full name before. I digress. So, anagen phase, everything's great, nice, healthy root to your hair shaft, and there's a little capillary attached to it, and everything's great. It's got a beautiful, robust blood supply, and it's actively growing. Catagen phase, that blood supply starts to detach and kind of shrivel up. So the whole bulb of the hair also starts to detach and shrivel up. And then in the telogen or telogen effluvium phase, it has so detached from its blood supply and so shriveled up that it's easily removed from the hair shaft. As in, all you have to do is run your fingers through it, brush your hair, and your hair will fall out. And I think the vast majority of us watching this video with me and my crazy hair can sympathize with that. We can empathize with it. We've lived that. And it's depressing to see the hair on the pillow, to see it in the drain, to see it on the floors everywhere, to see it in your comb, on your sink countertop. It's heartbreaking. Especially if you at any point had really thick, long hair. Seeing long hair all over the place can be very stressful, because it's that much more intense when the hair is really long. Anyway, I think that it's very important to know that the reason why minoxidil is the only thing that really works is because minoxidil is a vasodilator, which means that it dilates the blood vessels underneath the skin. Okay, so if the reason why you go from catagen to the telogen phase is because this capillary that's attached to the root of your hair shaft starts to shrivel up, what that vasodilator is going to do is it's going to dilate the blood supply there, so that way it doesn't detach. So it stops the cycle. Now, it may take a little while for that to happen when you start applying it, because by the time you start to notice that your hair is shedding, you're already too late. It's already in the telogen phase. Now, don't freak out, because usually that whole cycle will reset itself. It's a cycle. It's not you go through anagen, catagen, then telogen, and then no more hair. No, it resets itself. So it's not the end of the world if you catch it a little late. But what you're trying to do basically is just stop the progression of it. And so, you want to make sure that if you resort to minoxidil, that you use it every day, because when you stop, then that's going to progress to the telogen phase. And again, you're banking on most of those hair follicles resetting themselves in the cycle, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. And if you have some sort of hormonal problem, autoimmune disorder, or hereditary predisposition to balding, that cycle is going to be less robust in resetting itself. And I know a lot of this is going to sound very alarmist, and I hope people don't write a bunch of panicked comments here, because honestly, it's a natural biological process, and yes, it's something stressful to live with, but you can live through this. It's gonna be okay. It's really unfortunate, and I can definitely understand. As you can tell, my hair's seen better days. It's brittle from hormones, and it's falling out. And now that I've had this weight loss surgery, it's falling out even more. Okay, so I can tell you that you can live with this, because it's something. There's life beyond your hair. And I hope that I'm not coming across as callous or alarmist, because ultimately, it's how you cope with it. It's how you internally, not externally. I'm not even talking about buying a wig. I'm talking about it's how you deal with it internally, and how you make peace with it, that's going to change how all of this unfolds for you. And I think that once you stop assuming there's something wrong with you, especially after you've already gone through all the tests and all the doctors, once you have a pretty dramatic case stating that there's nothing really wrong with you. You have to really do a gut check there, because it's really easy to get very anxious and very wrapped up in the idea that there's something really wrong with you because you think women aren't supposed to lose their hair like men do. But we are, and we do. All right? So I think once you cast aside that misconception, it'll help you make a more balanced determination as to whether or not you think that there's really an underlying problem that requires pursuing. And if so, then by all means, please continue. I mean, even if you have a shadow of a doubt, then you should probably see how that unfurls. But it may just be a case of you really wished there was something wrong. Because maybe if there's really something wrong, they can give you a pill, they can give you a cream, they can turn back time, and your hair will come back. And for most of us, that's just not going to be the case. And it's sad to say. It's really unfortunate. But I think a big part of my mission here at CysterWigs is that I want us to be open with each other and really transparent about these things, and to have an open dialogue about these sorts of topics, even if they are slightly unpleasant or a lot unpleasant. Because, I once heard somebody say that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and I think it's true. I think that by bringing things out into the light, it's really difficult for people to bamboozle you. It's really difficult for you to let people manipulate you emotionally. It's, you get stronger and you can make better choices. And at the end of the day, that's the biggest gift I could give to you. So I hope that you understand where I'm coming from. I definitely don't want to persuade people who think that they've got something wrong, like you've got other symptoms that are concerning you. That'd be a really good indicator that perhaps there's something worth pursuing. If there's other sorts of symptoms going along with it that make you think perhaps this requires investigation, that might be the good cutoff. Because sometimes it's really hard to tell when something's just anxiety. As somebody who suffers from anxiety, I could tell you, it all feels real, right? It all feels real. It's not like you can just say, oh yeah, obviously I'm blowing that out of proportion. I mean, maybe sometimes you can, but a lot of the times when you're really anxious, that's very difficult because it all feels real until you get some time away from it, and then you're like, oh, maybe not so much. And so if you're struggling with that as part of this process, then maybe even you should talk to a counselor or something. There's no shame in that. I've talked to counselors. I've gone to psychologists before. If you've got anxiety or depression issues, I mean, there's no shame in that at all, because you got to do what you got to do to get through this life. And so you can feel better and be the best parent, best person, best business owner, best cat parent, best student, whatever you are. It's hard to do that when you're, feeling less than great about yourself. So don't be ashamed to go get help if you need it. And know that there's a whole community of people on here on the internet that are rooting for you. And it's not just me, there's a whole community here of very outspoken, very connected people who really care. And I think that you're in good company. This is something a lot of us have been through, and we have nothing but love for those of you who may not have come to grips with this yet. or who are struggling to find a diagnosis for something that may be an underlying problem. It's a rough road, it's frustrating, and I think most of us can pretty much identify with that. So good luck to you, and thank you again for watching this video. I know I look a fright because I just finished getting ready for the evening, but I couldn't help it. I had to make this video, long-winded and rambling though it may have been. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.